If you're on the hunt for actionable insights on escaping the corporate grind, embracing entrepreneurship, and building financial freedom, then you've found your guide. Welcome to the Deep Dive with Drake, where the success stories of real entrepreneurs unfold. Join host Drake Abshire as he delves into creating a multifaceted entrepreneurial career, inspired by his impactful Southern heritage. The stage is set. Let's embark on this journey with Drake.
All right, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of the Deep Dive with Drake. For this episode, we're actually going to be focused on mental health and personal development, which I think is so important with anybody who's trying to start a business, or if you're just trying to grow as a person. It's just so important that we dive deep into personal development and that we're making progress, right? So today we're going to talk about getting into topics such as depression, anxiety, goal setting, breaking habits, and stress management. And all of that really impacts us as individuals, right? So I'm so excited. I have my good friend who is going to be joining us today. It is Ryen Ellison. He is a therapist and he is an expert in his field with mental health and personal growth. So first off, Ryen, I want you to tell us all about you, where you're from. Give us a little bit of history just so our listeners know a little bit about who you are and what you bring to the table.
Hey, Drake, thanks for having me. Yes, I'm from Southern California. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak a little bit on this. All my life, I've always wanted to be in the field of helping people and being able to be a voice for others and other families that didn't have that for themselves. Growing up, I always wanted to be a teacher or something in the field of psychology or behavioral therapy. And so as I went through my life, I saw my family and other friends of mine go through that field and being able to see all the wonderful benefits that came from helping others and just the joy that they had from them. So I took it upon myself to dive into the field. I made a lot of really good connections and I went to school and was able to brighten my future in this area. And now it's really cool being able to help individuals with addictions and mental health and just overall behavioral change.
Yeah. And I have to say, just from our friendship and the little time that I've known you, we've had so many awesome conversations and I feel like you've helped me so much. So that's why I thought, I would love to share some of the things that you shared with me and the things that helped me grow and get better. And I feel like a lot of the listeners would really appreciate and find a lot of value in it as well.
Definitely. It's a big passion of mine, and being able to help someone like you and being able to draw our friendship closer while watching you grow has been amazing.
Awesome. Well, let's get into it a little bit. We're going to talk first off about mental health and the challenges that we face. I mean, some of the listeners may know this about me because I'm very honest about it on social media, but I've talked about that I've dealt with depression for a big part of my life. Anxiety has been around since I was a kid. And so I've been on and off of medications. I've done therapy. I've done all of it. You name it. I've basically tried it and I'm still on that journey, but I'm finding more balance and I am finding a bit more peace and learning how to live and how to cope better with it. But I want to talk about, in your opinion, what are some common mental health challenges that professionals face? Well, specifically about their careers and their business.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing your story a little bit too. This is something that I've dealt with in my life, and being able to apply the things that I've learned to myself has been great to see in others as I can expand to them. So mental health and professionals and business and growing there, I think a common challenge that is seen is the growing number of individuals that have generalized anxiety. This is something that I think spiked even more so after the pandemic went around, and it's just becoming, I think, uncontrollable with the amount of actual support that we have out there to fix the issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I would agree with all of those things. So piggybacking off of that, how do depression and anxiety manifest themselves, would you say, in high stress professions? Like for myself, I'm in real estate, content creation. Obviously, those things are very high stress careers. So, what do you think?
Yeah, so it differs from job to job, right? So your field is different than someone that works maybe fast food or retail or something like that. And so depression and anxiety, I think they're manifested and not being able to, individuals taking on maybe more than they can chew sometimes, or maybe they're taking on the right amount of work for their situation, depending on what job they're in, but they don't know how to go about doing it or organizing their day in a healthy way. And so I think depression is increasing and anxiety is increasing because people are in jobs that they don't know how to organize through their day.
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you that definitely does get into the chaos a lot of times. If I'm not staying to a schedule or really sticking with things, then it's like I feel like I'm just kind of putting out fires all day. Then the
Mhm.
whole day will go by, and then it felt like I really didn't get as much done that I planned to. Yeah. Okay. Can you share some insights that you think that are unique pressures or stressors that individuals tend to encounter?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. I think what's happening a lot of times is individuals are fresh out of school, or maybe they didn't even go to college, whatever the situation is. But the jobs that they're applying for, and that sometimes, usually, they get into, the managers or whoever else is involved are setting unrealistic expectations of the individual that they hired for the work. And that's coming in the way of limited training and not being able to budget themselves properly. And so sorry, recap that last little bit. So stressors that individuals are encountering are being placed in jobs that they're not actually qualified or trained to be in, and that's just because of limited experiences. But the economy, and I think the system right now, it's just everyone's trying to get any job that they possibly can because the cost of living is going a little bit haywire at the moment. And so people are getting jobs because they have great personalities, but they lack the ability to carry it out. And then that's backed up through further with manage and that's backed up further through with managers or bosses or other employers that are not training these individuals properly.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's an interesting point you bring up too, because I've noticed that in growing a team, I've noticed that sometimes it's very hard to tell the difference when you're interviewing people about people who have great personalities versus people that are actually skilled. But the interesting thing with real estate is that you need a bit of both, right? You need the skills and the know-how, but also the personality also takes you very far in being successful in business. So do you have a suggestion about melding the two when someone's interviewing somebody or even for myself?
Good question. I really think that trial and error is the best way. We can't really get a whole lot from an individual, usually just on based on the conversation. Given a conversation or an interview might give you a lot of information, it doesn't really show all of the work ethic that that individual is capable of. So I love the ability to shadow or the being able to take someone on a ride with me. So if you're looking into potentially hiring an individual that has a really great personality and you think they'd be a really good candidate for your business, I'd say give them a trial run. Just invite them into your business. Hey, this is what we do in a normal day. This is what I would like you to do. How would you go about doing that? And see how they go. If they need a little bit more training or refining here or there, that's something potentially you can do on the way. But I would definitely take that person along with you before you actually hire them and give them a little bit of a trial run just so they are aware of what the job really entails. I think that's the best way to go about hiring an individual.
Yeah, no, I do love that idea because then, I mean, you're going to be spending time with them, right, as individuals. So it gives you an opportunity to even see if it's going to be a personality match or if there's going to be a lot of times where you might be butting heads on different things.
Hmm.
Cool. All right, great. So let's talk a little bit about we're going to shift topics and talk about goal setting and really how we can achieve more within our business. So how do you think goal setting can really contribute to our mental health and well-being and really finding success in whatever field we're in?
Yeah, and I think this is such a good question. Goals really shape our future. And if we're not setting goals, then what are we doing really, right? So I think, and in my opinion and how I feel, is goals allow you to grow. So if I'm setting a goal for myself or I set a goal for you, Drake, that I want you to, I don't know, hit this PR at the gym. What do we do with that goal? We have to have mini goals, basically short-term goals that allow that big-term goal to be possible. And so ultimately, as you're setting these goals and fulfilling these short-term goals, you're building your confidence, you're empowering yourself, you're giving yourself enough motivation and momentum to keep going. And so goals, whether they're short-term or long-term, allow you to keep yourself on a learning and growth level. And that's why I think they're really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then it's like you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants, and there's nothing really that you're looking forward to. I've always talked with my agents and different people about the fact of setting just smaller goals. Like if we do a year goal, it's like it's too much. There's so much that can happen within the trajectory of like a year, right? We can have deaths in the family, financial issues, whatever. But if we have smaller goals, those little mini goals that get us to the bigger goal, then we have those opportunities to either reset if it doesn't go the way that it should, right? Or we have the opportunities to hit those goals that motivates us to continue on to the next one. Or we might even exceed it, which is even better, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. I think, like you said, and which we'll talk on a little bit further, is having that big term, that long term goal, excuse me, is the most important thing. So that's the big goal. That's what I want to achieve. But now it's about the definition of how do I achieve it. So I can have a goal at the end of the year that I want to do this, that, and the other. But now, what are those little goals that I need to put in place so that way I can make that possible?
Yeah. Okay. So, what are some effective strategies, would you say, for setting, achieving goals, and then especially when faced with obstacles or setbacks? And I know I touched a bit on this, but I'm sure you have your take on it.
Yeah, definitely. And so I think it's really important to have realistic goals to your situation. Like I mentioned earlier, we're all in different jobs and different stages in life, whatever it may be. And so if we're setting goals that are not realistic to our situation, then we're more or less setting ourselves up for success. And it's not necessarily that the goal itself is a bad thing, but it's not conducive to your lifestyle at that time in life. So you have to set goals that are realistic to whatever situation you're in. Obstacles, like you mentioned, there's death in the family or financial crises, whatever happens, these are all setbacks that we're not entirely sure could happen. It could happen at any moment to anybody throughout a day, and we're not sure. And so when we have a goal still in mind, we can still have that goal and whatever else is going on around us, around our, our environment, it doesn't affect our long-term goal because we still have that in play because of the system that we have already created. No matter what the environment is that we're surrounding in, and it's not to diminish that these times might not be, the easiest for you. Financial setbacks hurt everybody, right, in one way or another. Same with a death or any other unforeseen kind of circumstance comes up and we're not entirely sure what to do. But that doesn't have to take away from the person that you want to become or the things that you want to do. You just may have to pivot some of those short-term goals and make them, like I said, more realistic to your situation at that time.
Yeah, that makes sense. But well, how would you recommend individuals maintain balance between being ambitious and goal setting, but then also having self-care? I know for me personally, this is a big struggle of mine because I'm always about the goals and ambition and let's go, let's do more. And then I forget that the self-care is so important to making any progress. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, and so work-life balance is like the ongoing problem, right? We're not really sure how to have work too much, but not too little. So that way we don't lose our job, but then we don't want to work too much because then our friends start asking us, like, where you been? I haven't seen you in a long time. Oh, wow. And then you're like, I'm working, I'm working. And then they say, you're always working. And it
Yeah.
just goes
Yeah.
on and on, right? And
Yeah.
so I think it's so important. I've been doing this myself for some time now, is really focusing heavily on my habits and what I'm doing in the day. But along with these big things that I do in my day, whether it's work related or whatnot, I have on my schedule actually I prioritize downtime, recovery time, rest time, even just going outside and taking a walk or something fun. I tried to make sure that I'm not just built up so much with work, even though I have a million things on on my to-do list. It doesn't mean that I can't take care of myself. And so taking care of yourself looks different on everybody, right? Some people want to go to the gym to
Read.
take care of
Say that one more
themselves.
time. What's beeping? What's that
Self-care,
noise? Is that some kind of
self-care looks differently on everybody, right? Some people may want to go to the gym. Other people may want to go take a walk down by the beach or something like that. So whatever self-care is to you, it's so important to prioritize that in the midst of everything. And it's not saying that, okay, I'm going to work so hard Monday through Friday and then I can have self-care on the weekends. No, you need to be prioritizing self-care through your day because it allows you to be productive through your week. And that way you don't end up, like that saying goes, burning the candle on both ends. You end up giving yourself more energy because you were putting yourself back. Something I like to say is to not throw your buckets into empty wells. So make sure that you're doing things, your self-care is involved with things that give you something back. So like that bucket, I'm not throwing it into an empty well because I know that well is not going to have anything in it. I'm going to keep filling up my bucket in other places that I know give me something back.
There you go. That makes sense. Okay. So another favorite subject of mine I want to pivot to is breaking bad habits and, building resilience. I think that's so important also when it comes to all of these subjects. Now, what role do you think habits play in our mental health and professional success? Because I know I have plenty of bad habits.
Don't we all, right? No, yeah, habits are just so important, and kind of like we were just saying before, it kind of goes in the line of goal setting and self care. So when we create a habit, it does not necessarily go with that saying of it takes 21 days. It's not focused on a day count that creates a habit. It's focused on the amount of continual effort that you put in to create that habit. So if I'm being very intentional about creating a habit and I do it over a long period of time, then that switches into my autopilot zone as opposed to me having to manually, force myself to do it every time. And so when you put habits in play, and they're good habits, good for you habits like reading, exercising, having self care, socializing with individuals that build you up and whatnot, then those habits go into I guess, your reserve. And like I say, your autopilot. And then it boosts you up because you're filling yourself up with good things, right? You're filling yourself up with things that give you something back and allow your brain to be stimulated. And so, in a professional way, if you are having an onboarding amount of good habits that you can put into your reserve, then it's going to extend to other people as well because you're going to have more energy. You're going to feel more confident about yourself. You're going to have the right boundaries in place. And that all those things only better you and your business and personally.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so how can individuals effectively break bad habits? And then also, how do we in turn cultivate new ones or
Yeah.
positive ones?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Like I was just touching on a moment ago, it doesn't necessarily mean a day count to create or break a habit. I think they usually say it's like 21 days or something like that. And so when you are focusing on
That I'll take this.
my computer is wild. My computer's wild. Okay. So when you're creating a habit, whether it's whether you're creating a habit or getting rid of a bad habit, it's not necessarily focused on a day count, as I was saying before, but it's focusing on the continual amounts of efforts that you're putting through in order to create or break the habit. Something I like to do and encourage those individuals that I speak to and support is not so much focusing on breaking that bad habit, but what we're focusing on is encouraging the good habits that we're trying to put in place, excuse me. So when we're creating habits, as I was just mentioning before, whether we're making them actually or getting rid of a habit, it's not focused on the amount of days that a habit is done. It's about the continual amounts of effort that you put in over a period of time. And so that could take longer for some, it could take shorter for some, but it's about building that habit and more or less stacking it and compounding it. And so, in order to create a habit, I don't like to necessarily focus on getting rid of bad habits, but I like to focus on what you are trying to create. And as we continue to create these new habits, then those bad ones tend to fall away. and they fall away because we're not feeding them. I think that's the problem. Some people focus really heavily on getting rid of a bad habit by fighting it, this and that and the other. But while we're fighting this bad habit that we're doing, how can we then move to something else, right? So what is the next goal after we've fought this habit? So instead, how I like to approach things is, instead of attacking that bad habit with all of these strategies and techniques, what can we reinforce instead that allows these good habits to grow? And so I'll just use an example of reading. So I'm not much of a reader myself, but I've recently been able to encourage that side of me. And I started with something that I knew I could do. I read just a couple pages or one section of the book that I was wanting to read. Whether that section might have been, I don't know, a couple pages or one page or whatever it is. And so that was my goal, was just to make sure that I read one section. And I made sure I did that every day. I had it on my little habit tracker, and I just, okay, I'm reading whatever it is. And I encouraged it to be part of my day. And I think what happens often is individuals put habits in play, but don't put them in the right place during their day. So they say, oh, I'm going to read right before bed or something, or I'm going to read first thing in the morning. And as time goes to show, we know that not always these situations are as we plan them to be. So it's really effective to encourage these habits that you're trying to increase through your day. So for me, with reading my book, I take my book with me to work. And so if I know I have downtime at work or on my lunch break or one of my other breaks that I have, then I can pull out my book and then I can read then. Or I know if the first thing in the morning, I don't have any clients that I need to speak to, cool, I can do it then. Or at the end of the day, I had such a busy day, now I can read my book. So it's just about encouraging it to be part of your day and being prepared for whatever happens.
Yeah, no, I love that. I heard this from one of my real estate coaches, and I loved that she had brought that up. That energy goes where focus flows. So if we're so concerned about like the bad habit, we're just like, I don't want to do that. I need to make sure that I don't do that habit. We're actually focusing more energy on that negative habit rather than trying to like pivot. And it's to your point about, if we focus more on the positive things, the negative ones start to fall away. So I really love that.
Yeah, definitely. Like was just saying, if we're feeding those negative habits, then that's what's going to grow. And we even feed it sometimes by giving it so much attention to get rid of it that we're actually still encouraging it because it's part of our psyche, right? But if we're encouraging the good ones and feeding the good ones, then that becomes who we are.
Awesome. Well, so in your personal experience, what are some key strategies that you think have built resilience in yourself, or your ability to be able to bounce back from challenges, would you say?
There's so many challenges that I've experienced in my life, as I've shared with you. And it's crazy to see how far I've come and been able to grow just by putting in a few of these strategies that I've discussed to myself, like self-care. And so other strategies that I like to do now are reading. I like to make sure that I'm eating good food. And I don't mean good like, a greasy carne asada taco or something like
Oh,
that,
goodness,
but
that
like
you make me
healthy.
hungry.
I try to make sure that I'm eating good for me food. I try to make sure that I'm doing things that encourage my mental health. So that's for me going to the gym. That's going out and exercising. That's for me spending quality time with loved ones or people that that I enjoy my company with. It's involved me also just knowing when to chill out. So I can be kind of high strung and get overworked a lot of times. And so with my experience, I know that I need to just take a step back and detach from the world, maybe watching my favorite television show or movie or something that allows me just a moment of levity where I can laugh and just, be in the moment with what's ever happening. I've cut a lot of things out of my life that I don't need, including people. And those are just ongoing strategies that I just put in place, and it's not going to stop there. But I think if I was to prioritize any of them, self-care would probably be my biggest strategy that I use, and that looks different on everybody, as we mentioned before. But it allows me to empower myself. It allows me to set boundaries up with people or things. And so, no matter what's happening around me, even though my life has been flipped upside down more or less here, I can still bounce back because I know I'm confident and solid in myself.
Yeah. No, I love that. Okay, so our last topic that I wanted to discuss was stress management techniques. Things specifically, I mean, we all have stress. Every job is stressful, it seems nowadays, or stress even in our personal lives. But how can individuals recognize when stress levels are like becoming problematic, would you say? What are the
Yeah,
signs?
yeah, I think stress levels, I keep saying it looks different on everybody, and it does, right? There's a saying that goes, "No two flowers grow alike," or
Mm,
"No snowflake looks the same," right?
yeah, yeah.
But if you realize for yourself as a person, you look at yourself and you understand your sleep patterns are changing, your potentially personality shifts, becoming more irritable, maybe eating habits have changed, lack of motivation or desire to do things. These are all those precursor signs. And so if you notice in yourself something is looking different, whether it is the sleep or eating or personality shifts, that's when I would start to look at your surrounding environments and what's happening. And not necessarily has to always be work related. It could be just the people that you're around. It doesn't have to necessarily be your work related. It could be just the people you're around or the things that you're putting in your life that are increasing your stress levels. I like to, whether you're on medication or not, and medication has done a really great deal for a lot of individuals. But whether you're on medication or not for whatever symptoms that you're having, I think it's really important to make sure that even with medication, whatever it's helping you do, that you're still able to manage yourself and bring it back home to where don't have to be dependent on the medication to be successful. Now, given there's some individuals out there that require that, and that's definitely I support that 100%. But let's see how we can encourage individuals to de-stress themselves without dependency on other substances, I think is the biggest thing that I could say. And so with yourself, if you notice that you're they're having these changes in yourself and you're not sure why, I would look at your environments first and what's happening around it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't heal in the same place that made you sick. I love that saying. And yeah, it totally just shows that the things around us affect us more than we think, I think sometimes. Now, what are some practical suggestions or things that you think have worked for you to help you manage stress and that, our listeners can find to implement in their daily lives that would help them?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I think the biggest thing that people need to do and recognize is do things. Now, take this lightly, but do things that make you happy. I think we find ourselves so stuck on this pattern of work and then, friends, and then I have to do this and then I have to do that. And it just goes round and round and round and round and round. And I think it's tiring. I think it does nothing but encourages more anxiety or more stress because I have this party I have to go to, or this person
Mm,
that I have to support, or this person always gets mad at me, and I don't know how to tell them no, and it just the list goes on. And so for me, personally, some practical steps that I use for myself that I implement in my daily life, as I mentioned it a few times, but boundaries. I
mm,
think that is really important. It's definitely something that I'm working on because sometimes I can tend to push boundaries here and there. But I think it's so important to have boundaries. And that's boundaries of when to say no to something and when to say yes to something. This is something that I like to encourage everyone to do because the more you say yes to someone else or something else, the more you're honestly kind of saying no to yourself sometimes too, right? So if someone's asking you to do something or help you, or I'm sorry, or asking you to help them with something during a specific time of the day that you normally would go to the gym or you're reading something or whatever, then you're having to say no to these other things that build you up. And so that way you're saying yes to someone else. So I'm not saying to not help people or not be there for people, but just remember that you need to be solid with yourself. You have to have your battery charged in order to pour it out with someone else. And that's just something that I'm continually doing on a daily basis.
Yeah, I find that really interesting because boundaries, I think a lot of people always assume that that means from other people, right? That I have to set these boundaries with the way that other people take my time. But I love the fact that we have to set boundaries with ourselves, right? That willing to say no, that conversation. And I've tried so hard this year to be more cognizant of that, where I stop myself and I say, Drake, we decided we don't do this anymore. Like that, we decided this is not a habit or this is not a practice that we will allow ourselves to go to anymore. And it takes work. It really does, because we are such creatures of staying comfortable and doing the same thing. And we want to stay on that little hamster wheel of just the same activities. So it really does take a lot of fight and drive to get past those things.
Yeah, and there's that saying, I don't like to use the saying necessarily, but there's that saying of live for today. And I'm not saying to live for today, like, don't care about what's going to happen tomorrow.
More like
But
staying present is what you mean.
exactly. So
Yeah.
staying present in the moment, understand that your worries or stress or whatever's going to happen tomorrow is not going to change anything that's happening today. And so be present in the moment. I like to say live intentionally, live on purpose. And if you do those things and you're being intentional and being purposeful with your actions and your mind and just yourself, because that's the only thing we really can control, then you're embodying a person that's going to have a good day, even if the world around you is collapsing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just to kind of wrap it up, do you think there are any specific mindful practices that you've done or any relaxation techniques that you think would really benefit people when they're trying to reduce stress or just, promote better well-being for themselves?
Yeah, so I really love to practice, as we talked about, self-care. I think it's really important to structure your downtime. So have a time in your day, whether you have a busy day or not. It could be 5 minutes or 15 minutes, just to make sure that you have some time to reflect and be with yourself and have a conversation with yourself, like you said. Something that I practice is journaling. Prayer is obviously important as well if you're a person of faith. I think having that moment of time in your day to be able to reflect and meditate and understand and maybe have some conversations with yourself, I think is really important. I would definitely say do not underestimate the power of a breathing technique. There's so many out there. Even it's something that there's birthing classes on for women. But one of the hardest things that
Lamaze. Lamaze.
and they just yeah, the Lamaze, right? They teach you breathing. For the one of the hardest things apparently in life is they teach you breathing. And
Yeah.
so don't underestimate the power of a breathing technique. I think even on some phones and stuff, they have like that little mindfulness app. And so I just take a moment each day and I start my day with that. I give myself my morning phrase or mantra or whatever you want to label it as, and then I do some breathing and then I get into my day because I want to conquer it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, this has all been so great, Ryan. Now to wrap it up, I love to ask all of my guests this, but any books that you would recommend or that you're reading currently that you would love to share with us? I know you said it's not the top of things that you do, but you're trying more, so you have to be reading something right now. Give us a little insight.
So yeah, I'm not the best reader. I'm trying to encourage myself to be more of a reader. Atomic Habits, I will start as probably my favorite book of all time, just for creating new habits and focusing on just the person that you want to become. And what I like about that book specifically is it's not about, there's so many challenges out there, like do all these things for 75 days, you know what I'm talking about, and, and do this or that.
Yeah.
And that's great. But I think what's even better is being able to stack really good habits over a period of time and watch yourself grow, because then you have a foundation that you can build on. So Atomic Habits is a really good one. I just got a new book yesterday, actually. It's called Quit, and it's labeled How to Know How to Walk Away from Anything. That's a really good one. There's another book, The Subtle Art. You can fill in the rest. I think that's a really good book as well. And that's just about caring for the right things. And so when I say that you should read more, as we talked about earlier, read necessarily this fantasy book or a romantic comedy or whatever. Read books that stimulate your mind. Read books that allow you to grow as a person. And then the more that you do that, then you'll start being able to spread that to others.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ryan, for sharing your experience with us and your expertise on all of this. Before we wrap it up, do you have any final words or tips of encouragement for our listeners who are going through any specific challenges or anything they're really dealing with personally?
Yeah, like you and I have talked about our struggles and being able to find someone that you can confide in. Never go through a hardship alone. Never go through something um, big or eventful or impactful by yourself. I think giving yourself grace, giving yourself patience is so important. You're only the person you are, right? So you can't be too hard on yourself. You've never been through this experience before, so who knows how you were supposed to respond to it. So give yourself patience, give yourself grace, give yourself time to fix it, and never forget that you're a lot stronger than you are. I know being, like I just mentioned, relying on other people is amazing, but don't forget how much strength you have as an individual and being able to empower yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ryan. I really appreciate everything that you've done for me, and of course, coming and share what you have today with our listeners. And thank you guys so much for listening to another episode. Stay tuned for more episodes coming up. And also, just as a reminder, more people I would love to get involved and to learn more about my show. So if you would be so kind to leave me a review on any places that you are listening to this podcast, I would be forever grateful. And thank you so much. I'll see you guys in the next episode.
Thank you for diving into the world of entrepreneurial grit, personal growth, and financial mastery. Drake is here to arm you with the necessary toolkit to cultivate, nurture, and realize your groundbreaking ideas. Keep journeying with us by tuning in to subsequent episodes at deepdivewithdrake.com. The path to a flourishing entrepreneurial life is within reach if you commandeer your professional voyage and steadfastly chase your ambitions. See you on the next highly engaging episode. Until next time.